One of the biggest challenges of a sequel is how do you do something new while retaining the thing that made everyone love the first movie? John Wick had a built-in answer to that question in its hints at a larger world. We saw the Continental and saw how far John's reputation went. It became clear that assassination wasn't just a profession for him. It also granted him membership into another world, a secret society whose obvious wealth hinted at size, power, and franchise potential. Wick left you wanting a sequel to see more carnage, courtesy of Keanu Reeves, but also to explore that world further. That's one part of the secret sauce few other action franchises can boast. And Chapter 2 delivers. We learn about the High Table, markers, and blood oaths. We learn that the New York Continental is part of a network, including a Rome Continental. We meet the Bowery King and see that there are different organizations in the assassin world, each with their own unique qualities and tactics. Expanding the world offers new environments for fight scenes, with even more visual flair, like the catacombs, Gianna's coronation at the Baths of Caracalla, or John's tussle with Ares in Reflections of the Soul. And new environments also mean new tactics, like John planting guns throughout the catacombs in preparation for his upcoming battle, or the discretion required in his public fight with Cassian. Moving deeper into fantasy territory with Chapter 2 also enables things like a completely bulletproof suit with no additional bulk or restrictions on movement. And yes, I have seen the video. It's cool, but John Wick obviously takes things further than reality currently allows. This adds a new dynamic to the choreography, and we've seen heroes who can take a million bullets, but rarely in the context of limited CGI, long takes, real hand-to-hand combat, and guns that have to be reloaded. This movie also grows the world in the sheer quantity of assassins hiding among us. Like Agent Smith in The Matrix, they can be anyone, anywhere, at any time. Once there's a bounty on John's head, getting anywhere becomes an exercise in paranoia, and fights can break out anywhere with any number of fun characters, forcing John to improvise. Like finally delivering on the promise of killing people
with a pencil.
A pencil. I know, I've heard the story, sir.
With a fucking pencil? Who the fuck can do that?
But it's not just spectacle which benefits from this expanding world, but also substance. With the introduction of the High Table, things like blood oaths can be enforced by more than just a code of honor. In addition to gold coins, they also manufacture markers. Your bloody thumbprint on one half entitles its owner to a favor of their choosing. If you deny them that favor or kill them, the High Table will kill you. This results in some more complicated character dynamics that make John less of a willing participant, pitting him against acquaintances and even old friends. And of course, in the end, it's great setup for another sequel. In the first John Wick, Winston warned,
"You dip so much as a pinky back into this pond, you may well find something reaches out and drags you back into its depths."
That's proven true in Chapter 2. The something which drags John back into its depths turns out to be Santino D'Antonio of the Camorra, an Italian crime organization. Apparently, to complete his impossible task and be free of Vigo, John needed help, and the only way he could get it was by giving Santino a marker. After John's retirement, Santino was okay to let him and the marker go, but learning of John's apparent unretirement, he decided to come back and claim his favor. At first, John refuses to even hear him out, insisting he's not that guy anymore. Santino reminds him, "You're always that guy." And it's hard to disagree. A normal citizen wouldn't take on the Russian mob and execute a 77-person killing spree over a puppy and a car, as deserving as it may be. But that guy certainly would. By the way, it's worth noting it's not just the car John wanted back. Chapter 2's cold open shows what was in the glove compartment, a photo of Helen in an old birthday card. After John's refusal, Santino burns his house down in retaliation, and Winston reminds John the power of a marker and the consequences of running from it. So John finally hears Santino out. After Santino's father died, the Camorra seat at the High Table was inherited by his sister, Gianna. He wants John to kill her so the seat can be his. Once John knows what he needs to do and accepts it, focus, commitment, and sheer will turn him into an unstoppable force. One with no time to waste on words or villain monologues. After he's presented the task, John doesn't give a reply. He just gets to work.
What say you? Never want to waste words.
And immediately in the very next scene, John is saturated with a familiar blue hue. Just like the first chapter, this one uses color to visualize his re-entry into the underworld. In Rome, Gianna takes her own life to go out on her own terms, though John ensures the deed is done with a shot to the head. In an almost comical continuation of the theme that violence begets more violence and revenge is a cycle that never ends, Santino calls to inform John he now has to avenge his sister's death. So he's putting a hit out on John. John isn't surprised, and as always, has no time to waste on a villain monologue. He hangs up the moment he's heard enough.
I understand if you're upset. And I know it might feel personal, but what kind of man would I be if I didn't avenge my sister's murder?
John.
And Santino isn't even the only one out for revenge. An old acquaintance of John's, Cassian, was Gianna's guard, and he was close to her, so he puts himself on the growing list of people who want John dead.
An eye for an eye, John. You know how it goes.
The rest of the movie finds John evading those hoping to collect on Santino's $7 million bounty and ultimately coming for Santino himself. But like a coward, he's chosen to hide on continental grounds, where conducting business carries the same penalty as breaching a marker: execution. But if the high table is an immovable object, John is an unstoppable force.
Jonathan, just walk away.
Yeah, Jonathan. Walk away.
No villain monologues, just a swift shot to the head, consequences be damned. Because John knows Santino will keep running, sending killers, and raising the bounty as long as he lives. For John, retirement and peace is not an option until everyone after him is dead, even if everyone means the whole world. Winston warned John that he can't just take a step into this world and then walk back out. Violence begets more violence. Chapter 2 makes this plainly clear, not just continuing the carnage from Chapter 1, but growing it too. In the first movie, a gangster's son is after John's car and dog. By the end of Chapter 2, the high table and anyone enticed by a $14 million bounty is after his life. The more John kills, the more people are sent after him, and the more he has to kill. The depths of that pond seem never to end. For anyone else, the outcome would be a foregone conclusion. Eventually, the immovable object would grow so large as to prove the unstoppable force stoppable after all. But this is John Wick we're talking about. He wants out, and if they insist on dragging him deeper into their world, he'll burn it down as he goes.
Tell them all. Whoever comes, whoever it is, I'll kill them. I'll kill them all.
Of course, it's great sequel fodder, because it ensures a never-ending supply of bad guys. But also, while John's final words in the movie are on the one hand quite badass, on the other hand, you almost have to laugh. He obviously can't kill everyone. That's the futility of violence. Killing creates enemies, which necessitates more killing, which creates more enemies until it becomes overwhelming and inescapable. Death is the only possible outcome. But aside from John's talent, skill, and will, there seem to be only two forces pushing against that outcome. One is, ironically, the threat of violence wielded by the high table. Like a quasi-government, they use violence to enforce rules like no business on continental grounds, and you must abide by markers. Thanks to Rule 1, John can go to the hotel for a temporary reprieve and use their services to prepare for war. That's where he gets his new suit, weapons, and plots his path through the catacombs. Of course, his excommunication at the end of Chapter 2 cuts him off from all that going forward. But the second force that helps John is reciprocity. Violence begets violence, yes, but the opposite is also true. Showing honor, respect, and mercy also comes back around. We saw it in the first movie when old friends frequently came to Jon's aid, especially Marcus. There are more examples in Chapter 2, small ones like Sharon taking care of Jon's dog, and bigger ones like Winston giving Jon a 1-hour head start before the High Table comes for his life. But the Bowery King is probably one of the clearest examples. With Jon's life now worth $7 million, most assassins would kill him without a second thought, and many try. But the Bowery King spares his life and helps him. Why? Because Jon did the same for him years earlier. The king shows the scar on his neck and reminds Jon the choice he gave him.
Pull my gun, shoot you in the back and die, or keep the pressure on my neck and live.
A similar choice as the one he gives Cassian.
The blade is in your aorta. You pull it out, you will bleed and you will die.
Though it's not a choice he gives Ares, instead removing the blade. Otherwise, Jon time and time again manages to survive thanks to help from old friends. And sometimes that's more powerful than the so-called rules. At the start of the movie, Santino was completely within his rights to demand Jon abide by the marker. But there's also the matter of respect, and Jon made it clear he strongly wished to retire and stay out of that world for good. Santino didn't care. He pressed matters and burned his house down, all within his rights under the High Table, but also a violation of honor and respect. You could argue that Jon is the one being dishonorable by ignoring his blood oath. But rules and customs aside, his circumstances have changed so much since he made that oath, forcing him to deliver on it won't make you any friends. And that's proven when Santino, with his new seat at the table, finds his power inert. He demands Jon's membership be revoked at the Continental, and Winston refuses.
Then you know that I have the right to demand of you.
Nothing. You demand nothing of me, Mr. D'Antonio.
This world is one that allows for the use of violence to gain power, but that's only one half of the battle. The other is honor, integrity, and respect, things Santino clearly lacks. So although he lives by the High Table's rules, he dies by Jon's. Unfortunately, where respect and honor among assassins sometimes outweighs the High Table's rules, the flip side can also be true. When Jon comes face to face with Gianna, it's clear they know each other, and it's clear he doesn't want to kill her, but feels he must. In their final conversation, she asks Jon if Helen was worth the price he now seeks to pay. Gianna's life and the fallout of her brother taking over New York City. Jon nods yes. And as she cuts her wrists, she asks one more question. Do you fear damnation, Jon? And he answers yes to that too. With her final words, she says,
I always thought I could escape it. Did not see it coming. Did not see you.
A poignant reminder that it isn't escapable. No one can be on guard all the time or defend every avenue to them. In a world where violence is the normal course and you have something which someone else wants, you'll never live a peaceful life, if you manage to live at all. Watching these movies, you might wonder what Jon is fighting for exactly. In the first movie, I think he was in part trying to regain the sense of control he lost with Helen's death. But as he ventures further and further into his violent quest, it's easy to wonder where it all ends. Even if he kills everyone who stands between him and retirement, is there any joy at the end of that? Can he be happy at all without Helen? Maybe not. But when she was here, he shared love with her so precious, it's worth the price he paid before and the price he's paying now. Perhaps his hope is to live in peace. Just to remember the life they had, however fleeting it was. And he knows that she would want him to keep living. To honor that and honor their love, he has no choice but to keep fighting for the faint hope that he gets to keep living, too. He also says that he fears damnation. And hearing this, it's easy to think of the prominent cross and praying hands tattoo on his back. This tattoo could have any number of meanings or none at all. But one possible read, if Jon fears damnation, is that he holds some religious or spiritual beliefs. Perhaps he would see it as wrong to take his own life. And further, he may see it as wrong to stop fighting, no matter the odds, because that would be the equivalent of forfeiting his life. So as futile as it may be, he cannot stop fighting. because life, the memory of Helen, and his love for her is too precious to forfeit. It would be a sin to forfeit all that. Though there's some evidence to suggest he does see the futility in it. Maybe that's why he hasn't bothered to name his dog, because he knows their time together is likely transient. And maybe that's why, after John killed Santino on Continental grounds, he so willingly lets Chiron take him to see Winston, even though he knew Winston might have to execute him for his transgression. Chiron even talks to John like it'll be their last time speaking.
It has been a pleasure, Mr. Wick. Goodbye.
But when Winston gives John that 1 hour head start, and that slight chance at staying his execution for another day, John makes that promise.
I'll kill them. I'll kill them all.
Anyway, I think we can wrap it up there. I'm going to continue my way through the John Wick series, so make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to keep up. And if you just can't wait to hear my thoughts on John Wick Chapter 4, check out the podcast discussion I did with my brothers. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.